Hello.
So the next topic which we are studying is thermal dissociation. In the last class, we had studied about thermal decomposition. Okay, so we need to know the difference between decomposition and dissociation. So in thermal decomposition reaction, it is where a compound undergoes decomposition and gives you two products, and the products can never combine and bring back the reactant again. Okay, that is called as a thermal decomposition reaction. But if it is a thermal dissociation reaction, what happens in here is like there is one compound which undergoes a decomposition, that is the process of decomposition, that is it splits into two different compounds or two or more compounds, but the compounds which are formed as a result of this reaction can combine and bring back the reactant. Okay, so this is called as thermal dissociation. So this part is important because they will ask you a question like which will be mostly like give a point of difference between kind of a question between thermal decomposition and thermal dissociation, right? So you need to know how to write the answer. So we have got like 2 points here. So which will be first point you will be writing, that is thermal dissociation is a decomposition reaction in which a substance dissociates into two or more simpler substances on application of heat, and then the substances which are produced as a result of this particular reaction will combine and can form the reactant again. That is point number one. Point number two will be that thermal dissociation reaction is a reversible reaction. Okay, unlike thermal decomposition, which is an irreversible reaction, it can move only in the forward direction, that is reactant giving you product. Thermal dissociation is a reaction where will the product will combine and will give the reactants back. Okay, so it is a reversible reaction. So there are examples given to you on your screen where NH4Cl decomposes to give you NH3 and HCl, which both of them are gases. They combine again, that is when they are cooled. You can see that the forward reaction, you can see a delta sign over here, which means that we are heating this NH4Cl. So when this NH4Cl is heated, it gives you NH3 and HCl. And when this NH3 and HCl is cooled, they combine together and then it forms NH4Cl, that is a reactant. Okay, that's the difference between thermal decomposition and thermal dissociation. Then we have the second reaction wherein N2O4 will be heated and it will be giving you NO2, that is nitrogen dioxide gas, two molecules of nitrogen dioxide gas. But when we cool this NO2 gas, they will combine back together and will give you the reactant, which was N2O4. Okay, so this is a very simple thing to understand. So this is called as thermal dissociation reaction. Okay, yeah, 1 second. Yes, Tanay.
Yeah, sir. In the N2O4 reaction,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be NO2 because N2 will the two can be cut and written as one, and O can be cut, O4 can be written as O2. So we can do that also, right?
We
It
cannot.
can be further simplified.
It cannot be further simplified. We are not doing mathematical calculations here, right? We are making chemical compounds, na beta? So we have to follow the formulas there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we cannot cut and all. Okay,
Okay,
unless
sir.
and until the valencies, there are something to do with the valencies of the elements which we are taking there in the reaction, we cannot do any cancellation or anything in that part. Okay, the formula has to be written as it is. Okay, so in that case, if I
Okay,
was
sir.
hydrogen peroxide which has got a formula of H2O2, I can say 2 is common, I can cut, then I'll make it HO. That is not possible, no? Okay, so that is not
Yes, sir.
possible. So we have to follow the formula there. So we cannot cancel anything. Okay? Yeah, you need to know the name of the compound, right?
Okay,
So
sir.
the name of the compound over here is dinitrogen tetroxide. So if the name of the compound is dinitrogen tetroxide, it should have 2 nitrogen, it should have 4 oxygen. So we cannot write it NO. Okay? Yes, Malay.
Yeah, sir. Decomposition of water is both an thermal dissociation and an electrolytic decomposition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but then thermal dissociation, it's actually quite difficult because we have to heat it to a very high temperature to do that and all. That is not possible.
Yeah. And sir, is it reversible, the thermal dissociation one of water?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so the next type of reaction which we are studying is electrolytic decomposition reaction. In this reaction, you will be studying electrolytic decomposition and photochemical decomposition together, because mostly these questions will be asked as give point of difference between kind of questions. So electrolytic decomposition reaction is a chemical reaction which takes place by passage of electric current. Okay, which means that we are taking a chemical compound, we are passing electric current into the chemical compound, and the chemical compound undergoes decomposition. Okay, that is called as electrolytic decomposition. So we are taking the method of electrolysis in this reaction. Okay, so we have studied electrolysis of water in grade 8. So you can see that as products we get hydrogen and oxygen over here. Okay, so we are taking acidified water. We have studied the reason for that also. Acidified water is taken because pure water is a bad conductor of electricity, right? Similarly, photochemical decomposition, they are the chemical reactions which takes place, that is decomposition reaction which takes place in the presence of light, which means that if we keep these compounds, these chemical compounds in light, it will undergo decomposition. You don't have to do anything to it, just keep it in light. Okay, it will undergo decomposition automatically. These type of compounds, they are always kept in dark, either put it in a dark bottle or stored in a cupboard or somewhere where light doesn't enter, because these are highly unstable in the presence of light. So the examples given to you are decomposition of silver chloride. Okay, so silver chloride is an example given there. So silver chloride undergoes photochemical decomposition to give you silver and chlorine. Similarly, hydrogen peroxide, which I just mentioned a few minutes back, undergoes photochemical decomposition to give you water and oxygen. Okay, so these are the two examples. So in this, they will ask you basically the difference between these two reactions. So when you're writing this, you have to mention what is the factor which is affecting the reaction over there. That's just the important thing. Okay. Then there is a question which can be asked from this part, which is given to you so that you study that properly. The question will be, silver salts are kept in dark colored bottles. Why? So the reason for that is silver salts undergo decomposition in the presence of light. So to prevent the decomposition of those silver salts, we keep it in dark colored bottles. Okay, so if you see any silver salt kept in in any of the in the labs, if you see silver salts, it will always be present in a dark colored bottle. Okay, the same reason, that is it should not undergo decomposition in the presence of light. Okay, so these are the topics which has to be discussed in the topic, that is decomposition. I hope decomposition is quite clear to you. If you have got any doubt in the topic decomposition, you will raise your hand, we will discuss this and we'll go on to the next topic. Anybody who has got any doubts in the decomposition part, please raise your hand. Yes, Arya Gupta.
Yes, sir. For water, like Malay told, water is it even undergoes dissociation and decomposition both, right?
Yeah, and I gave the answer for that question also, right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Did you listen to do you listen to what I say, Arya?
Yes, sir.
Then why are you asking the same question, Arya? Why are you wasting my time? Ask the
Sorry,
questions
sir.
which are not asked, Arya. What is this?
Sorry,
Okay.
sir.
No problem. No problem. Okay. Chalo. Yes. Panini. Yes, Panini. Yes.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, could you can explain thermal dissociation? As I had a network problem that time.
Thermal dissociation is a decomposition reaction in which the reactant decomposes to give you the products, but then the products can combine again and give you the reactants. It's basically thermal decomposition reaction which is reversible in nature. So in normal thermal decomposition reaction, it is an irreversible process, that is products cannot combine and give you the reactant. But then in thermal dissociation, products do combine and give you the reactant. That is the difference between thermal decomposition and thermal dissociation. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, Tane.
Yeah, sir. In photochemical decomposition,
Yeah.
if we place the products in darkness, will it again transform into the compound it was before?
No, it is not reversible. We have never said it is reversible. No.
Yeah,
Once
sir.
it is decomposed, it is decomposed. That's it.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I hope there are no other doubts in this topic. Is there any doubt, somebody? Yes, Arya Gupta.
So all decomposition reactions are irreversible.
I gave you an example for a decomposition reaction which is not reversible, which is thermal dissociation. Apart from that, most of the reactions are irreversible. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it with decomposition reaction. The next topic which we are going to study is displacement reaction. Okay. So displacement reaction. Displacement reaction. One second. Okay, so displacement reaction. Displacement reaction is also known as substitution reaction, because basically what happens in a displacement reaction is that one element goes and substitutes another element from the compound and taking its place. Okay, so we have studied the general equation and all for displacement reaction. It was A plus BC giving you AB plus C. And mostly when we are discussing about the displacement reaction, we have to understand that it happens mostly with metals. Okay, and very few non-metals show displacement reaction, and the ones which we are studying till grade 10 is about halogens. Okay, that is why you can see on this page that I have given you the metal reactivity series. Okay, along with that I have given you a list of non-metals, and that contains only the halogens over here. So what is a displacement reaction? So in a displacement reaction, what happens is that basically a more reactive element, which can be a metal or a non-metal, will go and displace a less reactive element from its compound. Okay, so how do I know whether a element is more reactive or not? For that we need to know the metal reactivity series. Okay, so metal reactivity series, as you already know, is an arrangement of metals in which the highly reactive metals are placed on top and the less reactive metals are found at the bottom. So you can see when we are going down the reactivity series, the reactivity of the metals decreases. So I can say that potassium is the most reactive metal which we can find over here, and silver or mercury will be the least reactive. As I told you when I was discussing decomposition reaction, there is no need to go for platinum and gold because they don't undergo any type of reactions. So we study only till Hg and Ag. Okay, so we have studied that also. So, so K is more reactive than Na, Mg is more reactive than Zn, Zn is more reactive than Pb, Pb is more reactive than copper. So things like that. And we can also see hydrogen, which is a non-metal present in the metal reactivity series. The reason for that being hydrogen shows basically all the type of reactions and properties of metals. That's the reason why hydrogen, being a non-metal, is included in the metal reactivity series. So these metals can go on and displace hydrogen also from its compound. So hydrogen as in like acids like HCl, HNO3, H2SO4, these metals which are lying above hydrogen in the metal reactivity series can go and displace hydrogen from its acid. Okay, similarly for non-metals, that is this halogen which is given over here, we are studying only like 4 elements, which is fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So the most reactive non-metal which we have to study over here is fluorine because it is on top, and the least reactive is iodine. So I can say that fluorine is more reactive than chlorine, chlorine is more reactive than bromine, and bromine is more reactive than iodine. That is the order. Okay, so we have like couple of reactions for non-metals, but then basically if you have say 10 reactions coming for displacement reactions, 8 of them will be like from metals. So this should be given priority, that is for the metals. So we'll study some examples so as you understand this thing in detail. So as we said, the most reactive metal displaces the less reactive metal. So that is what is explained over here. That is, more electropositive metal displaces a less electropositive metal. Now, electropositivity is a property of an element in which it donates its electron easily. So the more easy the electron is donated by an element, the more electropositive that element will be. So the elements which are on top of the metal reactivity series are more electropositive, so they can go and displace a less electropositive elements, that is like given below that. So it can go easily and then displace it from the solution. So the first example which is given to you over here is zinc reacting with copper sulfate to giving you zinc sulfate and copper. So you can see that in the reactivity series, zinc is present over here. Meanwhile, copper is over here. So you can see that zinc is more reactive than copper. So zinc will go displace this copper from its solution. We are taking copper sulfate solution, and it forms its own solution, which is zinc sulfate. Along with that, copper metal is produced. Okay, I'll show you a video for this, so you'll understand this better. So zinc is going and displacing copper from the copper sulfate solution, forming its own solution, that is zinc sulfate, and it will be giving you copper metal, right? So in this type of reactions, there will be two questions which will be asked. The first question will be to write a reaction, okay, and the second will be to write an observation. Whenever you have an observation question, you have to make sure that you are writing the things you see, not the reaction. So what do we see when I add zinc metal to copper sulfate is the blue color of copper sulfate solution, it turns into colorless. Okay, copper sulfate was blue in color because of the presence of copper ion. Okay, copper ion imparts blue color to the solution. So when the copper ion is removed from the solution and zinc sulfate is formed, it becomes colorless because zinc sulfate is a colorless substance. Okay, that is a colorless solution, not a substance, colorless solution. Another observation which you can write is a reddish brown colored copper is deposited on zinc. So this copper which is coming, it gives a reddish brown color and goes and deposits itself on the zinc metal. So these are the two observations which we'll see in this reaction, but you have to write only one observation. No need to write both the observation, just write one observation. Okay, that's enough. You will get full marks for the question. Okay, the next reaction which we're discussing is when an iron nail is dipped in copper sulfate solution. So again, we are taking copper sulfate solution. So iron, you can see in the reactivity series, position of iron is over here, copper is over here. So you can see that iron is on top of copper. So iron can easily displace copper from its solution. So iron goes and displaces copper from its solution, making iron sulfate and copper. So again, we have got two observations here because the solution was blue in color initially due to the presence of copper sulfate. When iron is going and displacing copper, it forms ferrous sulfate. Now, iron being a colored substance, it imparts its own color to the solution. Ferrous iron imparts green color to the solution. Okay, so FeSO4 provides a green color to the solution. That is observation number 1. Observation number 2 is that copper metal is produced again. So copper metal gives a reddish brown color. So reddish brown colored copper metal is formed. That is the second observation. So these are the two observations which you will be writing when this question is asked. Read the question carefully and then write the answer. When the question is to write the reaction, just write the reaction. When the question is to write the observation, just write the observation. Do not write the reaction. Do not write the name of the compound and all. It is not at all required. Even if you forget to write the name of the compound, is totally fine. If you write the color change properly, you will still get full marks for an observation question. Okay. Then the next reaction which we have over here is metals above hydrogen displacing hydrogen from acid. As I told you, hydrogen is there in the metal reactivity series, you can see. So any of these metals, they can go and displace hydrogen from its acidic form. So if I can take HCl or H2SO4 or HNO3, I can do the same reaction. So you can take the first example, that is Mg. So you can see Mg, the position of Mg is over here in the reactivity series, which is obviously way higher than hydrogen. So Mg can go and displace hydrogen from HCl. So Mg takes hydrogen's place, forms MgCl2, and hydrogen gases evolve. So if I change the metals and the acid, the type of reaction remains the same. So that is if I'm taking iron. So you can see iron, position of iron is over here above hydrogen. So obviously it can displace hydrogen. So iron will go and displace hydrogen from this acid. So the compound which will be formed will be FeSO4 plus H2. Okay, so this will be the product which is formed. Now, there are two observations for this type of reaction. The first observation is obviously production of hydrogen. So we have studied in the chapter hydrogen in grade 8. When hydrogen is produced, you can see a lot of bubbles being formed. That is one observation. Bubbles are formed, or you can say, you can write effervescence is seen. That is one observation whenever hydrogen is evolved. Or you can write the color of the solution. FeSO4, we already studied. FeSO4, the color of solution is green. So we will write the observation that a green colored solution is formed, which is FeSO4. You can also write effervescence is seen or production of bubbles. Okay, so you can write these as the observation for this reaction. Okay, so that is one observation. Then the second type of reaction, as I told you, for non-metals, and as I'm telling you, there are only like, couple of reactions which will be asked, which is given here on the screen to you. So when I take the non-metals, you can see that the one which is on top should be going and displacing the one at the bottom. So we are not taking any fluoride compounds because it is highly unstable. So fluoride compounds are not formed generally, because even if it is formed, it undergoes decomposition or dissociation quite easily. Okay, decomposition happens quite easily. So we don't take fluoride compounds. So we are taking chlorine over here. So you can see chlorine is reacting with potassium bromide over here, right? And in this case, again, displacement is happening. That is, chlorine is going and displacing bromine from the solution. So you can see that chlorine is above bromine in the reactivity series. So it can easily displace bromine. So the compound which is formed is KCl, and bromine gas is evolved. Okay, so bromine is formed. Bromine is actually a liquid which is unstable. So when you heat it, it forms like, fumes and all. So that is an observation. But generally for non-metallic reactions, they don't ask you any observation questions, so you don't have to worry about that answer. So it's basically the metallic part which is quite important in displacement, right? So Cl2 reacts with KBr, giving you KCl and Br2. Now you have to remember that it is Cl2 and Br2, because Cl, Br, Fi, all these halogens, they are diatomic in nature. It does not exist in the single atom form, because it has to combine with another atom to become stable. Okay, it is never stable in the atomic state. It has to be in the molecular form to be stable. That's the reason why we are taking it in the form of a molecule, which is Cl2 and Br2. Similarly, I can take these two elements and do the reaction, that is Br and I. You can see that Br is above I. So I can take Br and I can displace I from its compound. This is not Kl, this is Ki, which is potassium iodide. So bromine goes and displaces iodine from potassium iodide, and it forms potassium bromide and iodine. Okay. So this is the type of reaction in which non-metals are involved, that is displacement reaction involving non-metals. So as it says over here on the screen, more electronegative non-metal displaces less electronegative non-metal. Now electronegativity is exactly opposite of what we studied as electropositivity. So what was electropositivity? Electropositivity was the tendency of an atom to lose its electron. Okay, so the more readily it loses an electron, the more electropositive it is. So when electronegative is opposite of electropositive, so what is electronegative? Electronegativity is the tendency of an atom to gain more electron or attract more electron towards itself, right? So it will be taking more electron towards itself. So the more electronegative atom or the non-metal which will be like, there on top of the reactivity series will go and displace a less electronegative non-metal from its compound. Okay, so that's the reason why Cl is displacing Br and Br is displacing I. Okay, I hope this is clear. Is there any doubt in displacement? If there's any doubt, please raise your hand. Yes, Malay. Yeah.
Sir, in the iron plus sulfuric acid reaction, what was the original color of the solution?
Sulfuric acid is colorless.
Okay, so in observation, it changes from transparent to green.
Yeah, you will say colorless to green solution.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Arya Gupta.
Yes, sir. So for those, for if the question comes like what do you observe? So you have to only write observation in those questions, right?
What do you observe means obviously you will write observation.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'll share two videos on displacement reaction. So the first one will be reaction of zinc with copper sulfate. Okay, displacement reaction, zinc and copper sulfate. So observe.
Reaction of metals. The chemicals that we will need are a beaker of copper 2 sulfate solution, as well as a strip of zinc metal. What do you think will happen if we were to place this piece of zinc into the solution? Let's find out. Observe that as the reaction proceeds, the solution.
So you can see the change over here. You can see what happened to the zinc. Okay, zinc metal we are taking, we are putting it in a blue colored copper sulfate solution. So after 1 hour, so displacement reaction actually takes time. So after a lot of time, we can see that the color of the solution, it becomes colorless, and you can see all the copper deposit on zinc. Okay, it looks very dark. Okay, so it's actually a reddish brown color thing which is going and depositing on it. So this is how the reaction proceeds. This is the reaction for zinc and copper sulfate. Okay, so observation, blue colored copper sulfate turns colorless. Okay, and you can also write reddish brown copper deposits on zinc. Okay, this is reaction number 1. The next reaction is reaction of iron and copper sulfate.
Iron being more reactive than.
So here they have taken copper sulfate solution. So you can see that the color of copper sulfate is even a little bit like, darker, because the concentration of copper over here is like a bit higher. And for iron, the guy here is using an iron nail. Okay, so iron nail is used over here. So observe. So what happens is, in this case, the copper deposits on this iron. You can see there is a color change in this, and he will just show it to you. And after some time, the color of the solution again, it turns. Okay, that will also be shown to you. Okay, so observe.
Copper displaces the copper from the copper sulfate solution. The brown coating on the nail is copper. If this reaction is left to proceed for several hours, a large amount of copper is displaced from the copper sulfate solution.
So you can see this deposit is the copper which is getting added on the surface of the iron nail, and you can see the difference in color. You can see on the same frame we have got the blue colored copper sulfate and the green colored iron sulfate, that is ferrous sulfate solution. Okay, this is an example for a displacement reaction. Okay, so
and iron takes its place to form iron sulfate solution, which is the green color that you can see in this beaker.
Okay, so this is an experiment wherein you can see a displacement reaction of copper and iron. So I hope that was quite clear to you. Okay, so that's it. So the next topic which we have is double decomposition reaction. Okay, so I hope there is no other doubt in displacement reaction, so that I can go on for the next topic. Okay, so the next topic we have is double decomposition reaction, and we are doing it together because it's almost like a displacement reaction only. The only change which we can see in a double decomposition reaction, the double decomposition reaction is also known as double displacement reaction. The reason being, there are two ions which are getting displaced instead of just one. Okay, so in displacement reaction, you could have seen one element is displacing the other. Here we are displacing two different ions from its solution. Okay. So the general reaction is given to you on the screen. That is, two compounds, they react together and they form two new compounds. And the anions are the ones which are getting exchanged. That's the reason why we are calling it exchange of anions. Okay. So when we are talking about double decomposition reaction, there are two types of double decomposition reaction, which is precipitation reaction and neutralization reaction. Okay, so first we will discuss precipitation reaction. So when I was giving you a introduction of all these reactions, I had told you what a precipitate was and all, if you remember. So the same thing was shared on the screen also. So precipitate is an insoluble solid formed by the reaction between two compounds in its aqueous solution. So the most important thing which you have to know, that whenever we are doing a precipitation reaction, the reactants should be in its aqueous solution, which means that we'll be taking it in its liquid form. Even if it is a solid, we'll be dissolving it in the liquid and, like, in water, and we'll be taking those two liquids and doing the reaction. And there should not be any substance which is insoluble in the reactants. The reactant should be very clear. Even if it is colored, it is fine, but then it should be a see-through solution. So no precipitates, nothing should be there. Okay, no undissolved substances in the solution, totally clear solutions taken for this purpose. And when we take these two compounds in its aqueous state, it reacts together, it exchanges its ion, and it produces two new compounds. And among those two new compounds, one of the compound will be an insoluble substance, and that insoluble substance is called as a precipitate. Okay, so this is called as a precipitation reaction. A very simple example is given to you on the screen, which is silver nitrate plus KCl giving you KNO3 plus AgCl. So as you can see, silver nitrate, the nitrate ion over here is going and attaching itself to the potassium over here, and the chloride which is there with potassium goes and attaches itself with silver. Okay, so this is what is happening. So this is basically exchange of anions. I hope you understand what is exchange of anions. So as a result, you can see that potassium chloride becomes potassium nitrate and silver nitrate becomes silver chloride. Among these two things, KNO3 is a soluble substance, so it becomes a clear solution, and AgCl is a precipitate, so it is a colorful thing. It is like a white colored substance. It does not dissolve in water, so it will be seen as a white colored substance, okay, when this reaction takes place. So this is called as a precipitate. So silver chloride is the precipitate formed over here. Okay, so other examples given to you. So we can see that they are taking soluble salt solutions, and we are getting one soluble salt as a product along with a precipitate. Precipitates are always denoted by a downward arrow, so it's okay even if you don't write that in the reaction, it's totally fine. Okay, so it is just for you to know that precipitates are represented by a downward arrow. Okay, so we can compare the reactions which are given over here. So the first reaction is calcium chloride and sodium carbonate. So calcium chloride and sodium carbonate, we'll take it in the aqueous form, that is dissolving in water. We make them react together. So chloride from calcium goes to sodium over here, and carbonate from sodium goes to calcium. So it becomes sodium chloride and calcium carbonate. Sodium chloride, you know, common salt, is soluble in water. Calcium carbonate is like, for example, chalk powder. Chalk powder you try to dissolve in water, does not dissolve in water. It's a PBD or a precipitate. Similarly, lead nitrate and sodium chloride. Now lead nitrate and sodium chloride, you can see nitrate from lead is going towards Na, and chloride from sodium is going towards lead. So the products formed over here are sodium nitrate, that is NaNO3, and lead chloride, which is PbCl2. NaNO3, again a sodium salt. So you need to understand one thing, that is all sodium salts, all potassium salts, and all ammonium salts, they are all soluble in water. So automatically if you get those as a product, it is supposed to be soluble, and the ones which are insoluble automatically becomes a PBD. So PbCl2, lead chloride, is a precipitate which is formed. It again forms a chalky white colored precipitate, that is same like, like how chalk powder dissolved in water is appears the same. Okay, I'll just finish this. I know it is like 1 minute for 11:20. Just give me 5 more minutes. I'll finish this thing, because tomorrow I will show you the videos for these type of reactions. I'll just finish precipitation at least today, so that we get some time tomorrow for the next reaction. So use of precipitation reaction in analytical chemistry. We can see that there are 5 ions which are given here in the table. Okay, so these 5 ions are being reacted to a common reagent, which is sodium hydroxide. So this sodium hydroxide reacts with these ions, that is we are taking it in the form of a compound. Okay, and then we are doing this reaction, and for every different type of cation we are taking, we are getting a different colored precipitate. Okay, so the This is wrong. Okay. So the first reaction, which is FeSO4 plus NaOH, where ferrous sulfate solution is reacting with sodium hydroxide. So again, you just need to know swapping of ion takes place. Hydroxide from here goes to Fe, becomes Fe hydroxide, that is ferrous hydroxide. Sulfate from here goes to sodium, becomes sodium sulfate. The color of the PPT, that is FeOH twice, is dirty green. And when we add excess of NaOH, that you add more of NaOH to it, it still remains in the PPT form, that is insoluble form. Okay. Then we take ferric chloride, which contains ferric ion, that is Fe3 plus. When it is reacting with sodium hydroxide, it forms sodium chloride and ferric hydroxide. The color of the precipitate which is formed when ferric hydroxide is formed is reddish brown, right? The next is cupric ion. So we are taking cupric sulfate, which contains cupric ion. We reacted with sodium hydroxide. It forms sodium sulfate and cupric hydroxide. The color of the PPT formed when cupric hydroxide is formed is pale blue. Similarly, we are taking zinc ion in the form of zinc sulfate. So zinc sulfate reacts with sodium hydroxide, giving you sodium sulfate and zinc hydroxide. The color of zinc hydroxide PPT is gelatinous white. Gelatinous white is like Vicks. When you add Vicks into water, or do you observe that same kind of thing, that is called as gelatinous white? The difference over here is like you can see all these things are like, you know, insoluble. This is the one which is soluble, which means that if I add more of NaOH to the same PPT, the PPT will dissolve in that, and it will, like, you know, the solution will become completely clear, right? The last one is lead nitrate. Now in lead nitrate, we have got plumbous ion. I have told you that mostly we'll be using plumbous. Plumbic is very rarely used for any reaction. So lead nitrate reacts with sodium hydroxide. It gives you sodium nitrate plus lead hydroxide. Okay. The PPT which is formed over here is chalky white. Okay. And that chalky white PPT is soluble in excess of NaOH. This is very important because this will come as a question for observation, and you have to write the color properly. Okay, even if you, like, you know, don't write the keyword like that, is like, you know, just write green, you will get 0 mark. You're supposed to write it as dirty green or reddish brown or pale blue or gelatinous white or chalky white. So the terms are very important. You cannot write the terms in your own words. Okay, so the color of the PPT is quite important, right? So this is the first type of double decomposition reaction. As you can see, all, like, you know, reactions are the same. It is just swapping the anions between both the compounds. You're getting the new compounds over here. Okay, the next type of double decomposition reaction is neutralization reaction, which was, like, you know, having two types. So I'll be discussing this tomorrow, and after that we will just do a general revision and we'll go on to the next chapter. Okay, so that's it for today, children. So we will see tomorrow. So we'll meet tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.